Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready? The champ is here! It's just a man! Give me a hell yeah! What the rock is cooking? To be the man, you have to be the man! Big Papa Pump! It's your hooker!
Fallen!
In the air! Woo, woo, woo! Cup of coffee in the big tank.
Professor, what happened?
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan.
Starstruck.
Okay, my bad. Okay, well, you know what, folks? Welcome to this first ever edition of Working the Marks here on StreamYard. Certainly, I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, the Professor Fernando Uribe, and he is New Jersey's premier wrestling analyst, the glorious, the dubious, the notorious, the PBR superstar, Patrick Rivera. Join us here on Working the Marks, a live edition on YouTube. I can't believe Pat's actually on YouTube, and actually, it's actually a good resolution on an Android device. So, hey, folks, miracles always happen every day in America.
Well, I got to tell you, it's a real treat to be here. You know, I obviously got dressed for the occasion, in case you can't tell. I'd like to thank my friends over at Liquid Death. Even though we're not friends yet, let's be friends. And I'm here to talk some wrestling with you, Profe. We got Dave, D, you know, in the background. Great stuff here. But I'm serious, and you want to know how you know I'm serious? I'm taking my glasses off.
Uh-oh.
And I'm here to seriously talk about Elimination Chamber and all the fantastic sports entertainment we saw last night.
I mean, Pat, one of the things that was interesting about Elimination Chamber, again, great PLE, watching it on Peacock. And I was first of all, I was so fucking happy that I'd have to endure 35 ads during a live PLE as opposed to the 37 ads that we have to endure when we watch a replay. So I was ecstatic to see a PLE actually just flow very, very sequentially while watching it live. I know that those are minor things and first world problems for me, you know.
Yeah, you don't stop complaining about it. But hey, I thought the whole thing was awesome. I know a lot of the marks out there, a lot of the mark journalists, they were trying to get a lot of seeds planted in people's head that, you know, Sammy didn't go over. It was going to be like the worst thing ever or something. And, you know, I think all in all, I enjoyed the show. I don't know about you. I'm pretty sure you enjoyed the show. I enjoyed the show.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to watch it live for the most part, but I watched a lot of the replay, and the first thing that came to my mind is, let's sort of break it down, I think, in the way that, you know, we can sequentially, but, you know, start off with the women's match, if I'm not mistaken. And I thought that, listen, anytime Carmella's on my screen, I'm never going to complain.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that, you know, I think any straight heterosexual male will agree with that, I would say. And certainly God bless Corey Graves for wifing that up as soon as he could. But it was interesting because I thought that going into it, all the workers, I had my favorite Asuka, as I know you did, because we talked about it on the podcast, but I just got a sense with the vignette and just a feel going into it that, like, I thought any of the girls were going to win last night. I was like, well, I'd be surprised if Asuka doesn't win. But I said, hey, I'd be fine with any of them because I think they all went in there with their own story. And I thought the match was very well produced. I think I saw something on Twitter today. I think, you know, each match was produced by a different guy. And I have to look at who it was specifically. But the point is that I thought it was well done. I think what we've come to expect from women Elimination Chamber matches, I think, has been pretty good since it started. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 2018 or 2019 was the first ever women's Elimination Chamber match. I could be wrong. I'm not going to Google it right now, but it just seemed like they've always been interesting. They've always been intriguing, and they've always been well produced. I thought that's what happened last night, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, these women, they're not just top women wrestlers. They're top wrestlers. Like, they're top wrestlers in the world. And I know it gets a little corny, a little contrived, a little overused to say kind of stuff like that, but it's true. I mean, these women are just as good as the men, if not better. The Elimination Chamber match last night, I think gave a lot of shine to a lot of people. Carmella looked great in it, more than just one way. And I just think that everybody that performed in that match really got to showcase what they were capable of doing. I thought Raquel had a nice showing. I thought Nikki had a great showing. Nikki kind of getting that repackaged, crazy, unhinged gimmick now. And Asuka looked like Asuka. She was awesome. She was clearly the favorite. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great match. I thought it was very, very well produced. And to your point, they only get better and better. So, I was definitely expecting a good one. Natty got a good reception. Natty lasted a little bit longer than I thought she would. Because usually Natty gets jobbed out quick, especially if it's a Hart in Montreal. They gotta keep the heat going. But I thought all in all, Natty had a fantastic performance. All the girls looked great. It was a great match, and they got it to where they needed to get it. They got Asuka as the number one contender to Bianca now, and I can't wait for that matchup. It's going to be great.
No, definitely. And again, we all know what happens to the Harts in Montreal. Definitely not the best destination for any Hart family member, but I mean,
you can just do your job, and then if you do your job, I think things work out really, really well.
Yeah, for the most part, right? Yeah.
Yep.
What was interesting about, I think, Asuka is, you love this evolution of the character. It's certainly going to be intriguing with that match at, Mania in Los Angeles, whether it's night one or night two, we don't know. But I think this sort of poses a very interesting scenario because for as long as we can remember, since she's been called up to the main roster, and again, I'll be the first one, I'm intellectually honest enough to admit this. I mean, I was never the biggest Bianca Belair fan. I know she's a great athlete. I never cared for the gimmick. I never cared for AJ skipping to the ring. I never cared for Paige skipping to the ring. Whatever, it's fine. But I have to tell you, her work rate, her mic work, she's made a fan out of me. I'm still not crazy with the gimmick. I'm waiting for that hair to get chopped off somewhere. But she is an amazing athlete. I mean, I'm not going to lie. On Monday, I think, again, every straight heterosexual male in North America loved her walking to the ring. Monday in Barclays. I'd be shocked for any straight male to like that visual of the booty shorts. But having said that, I think this might – okay, all right. I think this might be the first time that Bianca might not get the pop over her opponent. And
I think they owe Asuka this one.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying I think this might be the first time where I'm not saying Bianca's going to get booed out of the building in SoFi, but I just think that Asuka's going to get a much bigger pop. Almost, I'll sort of draw this correlation where back to 2018 in New Orleans, Asuka just won the Rumble in Philadelphia a couple months before. She was challenging Charlotte. Charlotte was still really over as a babyface, and Asuka was the clear heel. But you go back and watch WrestleMania on Peacock again and endure the 57 ads during it. But when you watch the replay, like you will clearly see that Asuka was over with that crowd. And she was the heel. It kind of makes you think, I would argue 5 years later, history might repeat itself. I think, again, Bianca's not going to get booed out of the building. But I think that Asuka is going to overwhelmingly be the favorite and the crowd favorite in that match, bro. I don't know. That's how I look at it.
Well, I mean, look, Bianca's been on a great run. She's a top star. Fernando, as we know now, does not like skipping in wrestling. Any type of skipping. You're thinking about skipping in the future, all you indie workers that are listening to this, no skipping. We don't want any skipping. Uribe don't like skipping in his fucking wrestling, all right? But I just think that, like you said, Asuka is a really good opponent because the fans can get behind her. And that's what you want. You want somebody that the fans can get behind, that people aren't going to just look at as somebody that's going to do the job for Bianca. She might do the job for Bianca, but let's at least create the illusion that, hey, maybe there's a chance. I don't think so. I think Asuka is going to win the title. I think you got to keep going with the hot hand with Asuka. Unless you want to, use her to put over Bianca, okay, cool. That's fine too. But like for me, you bring Asuka back like this, give her the title, give her a run. You're repackaging her. You made her a killer again. Let's go. But yeah, I'm really, really excited. And again, I think a lot of the stuff that we talked about are variables that are going to certainly play a part in this match as it moves forward. But I'm just really excited because, again, these are two great athletes at their best right now. And I think with every test, Bianca, in my opinion, has gotten better. Every time they've thrown, a Charlotte at her, a Becky at her, a Bailey at her, a Sasha at her, she rises to the occasion and she knocks it out of the park. I don't expect anything less in this matchup.
No, I agree. I think it'll be very interesting going into SoFi Stadium. And as for the girls that obviously didn't win last night, I mean, obviously we'll touch upon this in the next few weeks, but it kind of makes you wonder, where they're going to be in their place at WrestleMania, if anything. I think we've talked about it before on the podcast. I mean, I know you don't like an abundance of titles, but I would say with the plethora of girls on both rosters, I think you can kind of make the case that maybe, you can have a SmackDown women's tag titles. You have it for men, you can have it for women. I think it still gives a lot of the good workers, a lot of the good females on the rosters, an opportunity to be in a title picture, to be in that title program. I get it. The purpose of the women's tag titles was to just have it defended between both brands. I don't see that. I think a good way to keep a lot of these girls fresh and out there and out for visibility is to create another women's tag title for SmackDown. I mean, again, maybe I'm just sort of oversaturating. And again, the conservative here advocating for participation trophies will be the last thing anyone ever think of. But I would say that I think that you want to keep a lot of these ladies not relevant, but present and fresh on people's minds. And again, lean into Mania, bro. Like it, what I'm saying? Like people just get lost in the shuffle sometimes. It's a big roster, between NXT and Raw and SmackDown. So I think it'll be interesting what happens with the girls that didn't win last night moving forward, just as it's going to be interesting for us. The mixed tag match I thought was very well produced. I don't know if this is the end of, Edge's grievances with the Judgment Day. I think we saw sort of the continuing rise of Dominic Mysterio as like this amazing heel character that he has been working hard at. And listen, let's be fair, man. It hasn't been easy for him, right? Because there's always been this perception when he started, he came up, he's still very green. He made history with his dad, won the tag titles from Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler. And then obviously at some point we're like, well, he's going to turn on his dad eventually. It took a few years and he did. And I think him joining Judgment Day, that entire faction, I'll be honest with you, and I get it that sometimes the overkill or the exaggeration, of spending 48 hours in prison, a local jail, that's not really hard time per se. I mean, it's never happened to me, so I can't speak, but I mean, it's not, he wasn't in Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, but it's great character work, the way they're making Dom look here, but good win for Beth and Edge. I think, again, I don't know if this finalizes the feud. I don't know if we still need to see a Hell in a Cell match between Edge and Finn Balor, as it's been rumored for months. I wouldn't mind seeing that at WrestleMania.
No, not at all. I think you could get a Brood Edge versus, a different iteration of Demon Balor. I think that'd be kind of cool to see. For me, we've talked about this privately. For me, Dom, his rise as the top heel is just amazing. I mean, I'd argue he's the number 2 heel in the business right now behind Roman. And a lot of people say, oh, well, what about MJF? But MJF is a face, man. MJF is a face. Like, he does not get the kind of reaction that Roman got. He does not get the kind of reaction that Dom gets. People hate Dom Mysterio. They hate him. That's great. That's a good heel. You know what I mean? I'd love to see him and Ray at Mania. That would be awesome. I'd like to see some type of mask stipulation or mask versus hair. Dom maybe loses his mullet. Or Ray loses his mask. But I'd really gotta like we've said on the show. I'd like to see Dom go over in that situation. I think the heat, everything with him, all the stuff he's been doing, the character work with Rhea. I mean, Judgment Day to me, they're kind of like the mid card bloodline. They're kind of like the interesting shtick in the mid card that's keeping it going. And look, Gunther is fantastic. He's great. He's a great wrestler. He's fun to watch. But I gotta go with the bloodline. I mean, not the bloodline. The Judgment Day being a little bit more interesting than Gunther is for the mid card. So hopefully we'll see kind of something a little bit different with Gunther soon. But right now, Judgment Day is just killing it. Dom's just continuing to rise. Priest we'll talk about in a little bit, but I definitely would like to see Balor, and Edge at WrestleMania. I think that would just be perfect, and that'd be a nice way to kind of cap the feud.
I'm with you, man. I'd love to see that match, but again, this is the smark in me where I don't know. I'd like to see the payoff of the annoying kid getting what he deserves from his dad at Mania, and maybe that's just old prehistoric storytelling or happily ever after, whatever. It just seems that, listen, it's been great character work with Dom. I think everything from crashing Thanksgiving and Christmas to what he's done, I think it's been great character work. I think that it's been very well produced. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just me, but I'd like to sort of see the payoff where, hey, the bratty kid gets what he deserves and his father kind of sticks it to him at Mania. I'd like to see that. You're right. I know we've talked about it off the air. This is what Ray has been preparing himself for, to put his son over to help sort of elevate him. Again, I don't think Dom losing at WrestleMania does anything to him if that's in case the way it is. If Dad finally gets one over on him, I don't think it's the end of the world. It doesn't kill It doesn't kill Dominic at all, at least in my opinion.
I don't know, man. I got to disagree, man. I think you got to keep going with the hot hand right now. Dom's despised in every building that he goes into. They're really running with this, jail cholo thing. He made the wine in prison. He's doing a lot of good character stuff. Go with the hot hand. Ray doesn't get hurt with the loss whatsoever. You know what I mean? He's Rey Mysterio. He's going to be fucking over for life. They're going to be making, years from now when the civilization is destroyed and everything's not around. You're going to have cockroaches and Rey Mysterio action figures everywhere. That's what you're going to be seeing. So, I mean, Ray's he's going to continue to make money. He's going to continue to be, something for them no matter what. And he's forever over. But Dom, you gotta give Dom the win, man. The kid needs the rub now. Let's keep it going. Let's watch his progression a little bit further. That's
fair. That's fair. And folks, again, for everyone tuning in now via Famcast Media, obviously on YouTube, you can check out obviously all of our great social media as it's there on the banner. I know Pat doesn't like to see it there, but at Patty Rican there on Instagram, at the Fernando Zone on Instagram as well. Check us out on Twitter, folks, and certainly on our Facebook page. I love the little banner there. Shout out to our exceptionally gifted producer, D. Rotten, there for working as well as he does. We got
Dave gets a pop.
We got to put this guy over because he always does exceptional work here. Moving on to the men's chamber match, and it's funny though, Pat, because listen, I think we both
didn't we forget about one? We forgot about the two behemoths, the meat slapping.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going in any particular order, but yeah, no, absolutely, that's right. No, Brock Lesnar obviously fighting Bobby Lashley. We saw on Friday sort of an ominous, sort of turn per se, where Bray Wyatt ultimately was challenging the winner of this match at WrestleMania. So it kind of put a little dot into your head, where's Paul going to go with this? Does Paul want to, have Wyatt face Bobby Lashley or Brock Lesnar? I think the Wyatt Lesnar match is something that's been teased for years. If you go back and watch old Rumbles, like the stare downs and everything else, there's always been that intrigue by fans. I think Bobby Lashley getting the win by a DQ is interesting. I don't know if this is the end of the feud per se, but it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward, because I think that, we're seeing the seeds being planted with the Hurt Business kind of reforming again. Whether or not that'll be a little bit of a neutralizer against Bray Wyatt and Uncle Howdy. Who Uncle Howdy is, I still can speculate with you, bro. But I would have preferred Lesnar going over in this match to face Wyatt at WrestleMania, but maybe something will change. Maybe Lesnar will want a rematch because, again, he was disqualified. So maybe he'll feel, hey, listen, it wasn't a clean finish, or nothing was decided. I want a chance at Bray, or just a chance to win the feud with Bobby. I thought the match was well done. Again, these are two good workers, guys who've been seasoned in the business. I wouldn't mind seeing Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar fight forever. I know it sounds like a horrible cliche and a horrible title for a video game, if anyone ever thought of that. But it just seems like they could keep going. WrestleMania is still 6 weeks away. So it's not like, well, maybe they can do something. Again, I don't want to see a triple threat, but I wouldn't mind Lesnar being the guy to face Wyatt at Mania, though.
Yeah, I got to go with you on that one, man. Bobby and Bray just isn't very ultra appealing for me. I don't know, man. I'm sure it would be good. I'm sure that it would be great. Obviously Bobby's a great worker. Bray, I think needs the right type of guy with him, but I think, once he has a good dance partner, he could get going. But Brock and Bray is just, it's a lot more interesting, especially with, a lot of the character work and stuff that Brock's done lately, with the fucking cowboy hat and the feather and the tractor and all that shit. Like Brock's like, you could see he's a lot more comfortable. He's a lot more loose. He's got a man bun, and who's going to say shit to Brock Lesnar about his fucking man bun? Okay.
You go tell
Nobody.
him.
No, I'd compliment it. I had a man bun once. But I would just say that Bray and Brock is a lot more interesting. I'd like to see that if you're going to do anything with Bray Wyatt. Otherwise, what else do you have? I mean, maybe Brock and Gunther, but I'd rather, even in that case, I'd rather see Bobby and Gunther and see Brock and Bray still. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I had that as an option instead. So we'll see where it goes. I'll tell you one thing I liked about the match. The fact that they had a lot of big spots and they hit a lot of big spots and they kicked out of a lot of big spots. And it was just like back and forth. And I find that the best matches with Lesnar are like the matches that he had with your boy Goldberg. Like, just big, impactful moves, hit them hard, hit them stiff, and kickouts and stuff like that, because otherwise you try and tell too much of a story with these guys or have them work a fucking armbar. It's not going to really make much fucking sense, and it's not going to be too appealing with these kind of behemoths in a match. So,
Fair.
all in all, I'm interested to see where they go, but I'm with you, man. I gotta go Bray and Brock. I think that's a better matchup.
I'm with you. Now, again, how this all incorporates into the return of the Firefly Funhouse next week, I think will be interesting. Whether or not they have like a Brock puppet or something. I don't know. It's just, it's weird. I don't know, man. Yeah, I certainly don't want to go off on a tangent about Bray Wyatt because we've done that on our shows before. But I don't know, dude. It's one of those things where they keep, I don't want to say repackaging him, but I get it. It just seems like, bro, the sizzle is a hell of a lot better than the steak sometimes with Bray Wyatt. And, the match at the Rumble was not very appealing with LA Knight. Again, I'm sure Paul and him are working collectively together. And it was interesting because we talked about this before we went on the air today, as you were logging in with D. And, not to sort of go off on a tangent on this, but obviously all the Twitter rumors, the conspiracy theories that, Vince is back having some input in creative. And, that's probably why we got what we got last night. Again, I don't want to feed into the conspiracy theories with the marks and trolls, but it almost makes you wonder, like, how many times is Paul going to give Bray Wyatt, like, enough of a, I guess, rope to hang himself, as they say. I know that's a horrible cliche, but it just seems like maybe this will help get Bray over more. I mean, again, he's selling merch, he's selling shirts. I'm not saying he's not over, but what? I think you know what I'm getting at, bro. It seems like it's very it's very uninspiring, bro.
Well, here's the thing, I say this to people sometimes, and you don't really think about it, I guess, when you're a kid, right? But like, imagine at your age right now, you saw The Undertaker and you saw him debut. You'd be like, this is fucking hokey. This is stupid. And this is fucking dumb. Little did you know, the guy would, blossom into one of the greatest to ever do it. Bray Wyatt's kind of in a similar predicament. Bray Wyatt's in a situation where he's kind of like this generation's Undertaker. So he always kind of runs the risk of things like being hokey or not. You know what I mean? Like, and it's kind of like a fine line sometimes. You know what I'm saying? But I'm giving it a chance. I will say this much. He's incredibly creative.
Yeah.
You might not like everything that he does. A lot of people didn't like the Mountain Dew match and all that other stuff, but it's creative, man. And you got to give the guy credit for going for it. You really, really have to, because he's incredibly creative and just they're giving him a chance. They're giving him a chance. And something's got to stick. I mean, the guy's selling merch. He's got a lot of cool gimmicks, but something inevitably has to stick.
No, I mean, listen, he's over with the crowd. He's I mean, again, I can't really quantify how much of a top merch seller he is, whether he's top 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever, but he's selling merch. I mean, there's tons of Bray Wyatt stuff out there. But again, it remains to be seen what happens ultimately with him, whether or not Bobby Lashley indeed will be his opponent since he won the match by disqualification. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see again as WrestleMania 6 weeks away. Certainly the men's chamber match for the coveted United States Heavyweight Championship, the coveted U.S. title.
The second rate secondary belt you talking about? The second rate secondary belt?
Bro, great professional have held the United States Heavyweight Championship from Harley.
Better ones have held the Intercontinental title, though.
I get that. No one's disputing that. But it's not like we're having a bunch of New York Mets players hold the U.S. title over the decades. It's been like legitimate workers.
You mean the same New York Mets that are printing out playoff tickets? Because that's what I heard. I heard they're printing out playoff tickets.
I heard. I actually got invited to 2 playoff games already, and not even one pitch has been thrown yet. But we're
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking historically at great workers, obviously being U.S. champion. Obviously, I think Austin Theory continues that lineage. Great match. I thought it was interesting that how hard the commentary team was trying, for example, with, let's say, Bronson Reed, a guy whose return has been very uneventful, very flat. He went in there, obviously being portrayed as the monster in there, a guy that, looks very, very overwhelming. You were waiting for that Montez Ford moment. You saw the crowd was behind him. And maybe, again, you saw a lot of spots by him in this match that made you think like, hey, listen, this is a single star that they want to see in the future. I mean, nothing against his partner, Dawkins, but it just seems like Montez Ford checks off a lot of boxes as a potential single star, I would say. But I just thought that, between Damian Priest, between Johnny Gargano, I thought that, everybody, I think, got a decent pop upon their arrival. Again, I would say Bronson Reed was probably the flattest, but, we all know that, Seth Rollins was going to get that overwhelming response. We know that everybody, I think, was going to go in and really, really try to impress here going into what this match represents. And I was surprised because I know that I hadn't seen it on Twitter, though, bro. Like, I wasn't aware that they were sort of teasing a Logan Paul Seth Rollins potential match. I mean, I had not seen that. So to see Logan Paul show up at the end of the match to ultimately cost Seth Rollins the title against Austin Theory, I thought was interesting. I love the comments last night. I'm on a few group chats on Facebook and everywhere else about wrestling, and consistently all you heard was like, wow, that was a real buckshot lariat, unlike what you see from Hangman Page in AEW. And I said, whoa, man, people have zero F's to give.
God bless Logan Paul. God bless Logan Paul.
Yeah, I mean, he did it so well. It seems like, obviously, we saw it at the Rumble. Whatever leg injury he suffered when he fought Roman Reigns, I think may have not been as serious. It's good to see that he's very mobile. We saw it at the Rumble. We saw it last night. Again, dude, it's weird because the way they've presented Logan Paul from the beginning, obviously they had him team with The Miz. Then they had him, obviously fight Roman essentially as a face, which a lot of people weren't buying. And now clearly I think it's apparent that Logan Paul is going to be the heel going into the match with Seth Rollins. I think this has the potential to be one of the better matches I made because I think the build-up, I mean, you're going to see Logan Paul on his show really build up the match, be that heel, talk trash, belittle Rollins. Who knows? He might, a few jabs at Rollins for being married to Becky Lynch. This has a lot of great possibilities going into it. But back to the Chamber, though, match, I think it was very well produced. Again, a long lineage of great. I can't really remember one Elimination Chamber match on the men's side 4 years now that's ever been a stinker. I think they've always been intriguing. I may not have liked the booking, the way it was booked and the result or the winner. But I can't think of one Chamber match that wasn't well done since its history, really 21 years ago.
I can say this much, man. I really enjoyed the fuck out of the match. Yeah. And to your point, I think since the Elimination Chamber's inception, the way that they've been able to book it, the way that they've been able to produce it, the people that have been involved, they've always made for an interesting match. And what's cool about it, I think, is that, the elimination concept, like the fact that it leaves for interesting matchups. You could look at it and you could have two main event guys, and you could be like, well, those two main event guys are going to be the last two, but then the one underdog guy and the one main event guy are the last two, you know? So it always makes for really, really interesting ways to tell stories and use the surrounding gimmicks, you know, the cages, the glasses, all that stuff, to be able to, you know, tell your story. Last night before the show, I actually watched the first Elimination Chamber match, the one back in '02 at Survivor Series that Sean won. And you look at the cage from then to where it's at now, it's night and day. You know what I mean? It's just.
Well, I remember too, though. I mean, I think the biggest. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think the first thing that really stands out for me, I think, is the platform where it was always metal. Now it's just either some mat or something on top of the metal. Which, I mean, again, I don't want to fall on it. Believe me, I'm not saying it's easy to fall on it, but clearly, if you remember, like RVD, I'll never forget it. The first one you mentioned, man, RVD spill on that metal barrier around the ropes. Holy shit, dude! Like it was like I felt it in my vertebrae. I felt like, oh my god, like that hurt me. I guess you're right. Over the years, I think they've also. I mean, they also don't want people killing each other. So if they're padding the apron area over the metal, that's not the worst thing in the world. The chain link fence is still going to be catastrophic to hit. You know, you don't want to run into that at full speed. So yeah, I know you're right though about like the obviously the design of the chamber has changed dramatically. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And the platforms on top of the pods themselves too. You know, like before you kind of had to like stand in between the chain link fence. And to your point, what you mentioned about RVD. When RVD hit that 5-star off the top of the pod, when he, you know, first of all, he had to find his footing, which was a little difficult. Then on top of it all, he had to hit the 5-star off of there. And when he came down, he actually crushed Triple H's larynx. So he finished the rest of that match with the crushed larynx because Van Dam came down, I think, with his knee, like right across it.
Well, remember too, there wasn't the spacing. I mean, they've also enlarged the chamber where you have a considerable gap between the roof of the pod and the rest of the chain link, ceiling apparatus. So I think that's also allotted for it being safer too.
Well, they also kind of Tetris that motherfucker, so that like it just slides right in. Into like the ringside area, whereas opposed like before, it was just like this giant metal circle coming on top of like a square. So it was kind of like a little weird, you know, but now it's better. Just, I mean, like the camera work, everything, like it's so much easier. Like they've mastered it. But the match yesterday, you know, we had talked about it on the show, and I had mentioned that Bronson Reed, Johnny Gargano, you know, Priest, Steven, but mainly those two, and I would say Montez Ford were really the ones that had something to prove in this match, you know, because Priest is Priest, you know, Seth is Seth, Theory, he's the dude on the rise, but like those three guys definitely had something to prove. And Bronson and Johnny more than anything, because Bronson came back, it was a little flat with the crowd. Johnny hasn't really been able to find his footing on the main roster. And Montez, you know, he's, I'm sure, been dying for this opportunity to showcase his abilities as a single star, which is pretty evident, you know, every time the guy's on TV. So all in all, man, I thought this match was awesome. I love the finish. I love how we had mentioned that Logan Paul would show up. Logan Paul, to me, when I look at him, he reminds me so much of Love Machine Art Barr. The way his body is, the way he hits the frog splash, his mannerisms, you know, even the shitty kind of mullet thing. It's just like, he's got that thing going, man. He's got that. There's a swagger to him. There's a demeanor to him. And yeah, man, he hits that buckshot lariat pretty badass, man. So, you know, I think that Logan Paul is exactly where he needs to be. The ceiling is incredibly high for him. And, you know, I think him, his brother, Austin Theory, they should start up a stable in the E and call it the Influencers. Be like over-the-top douchebags making videos all the time, you know, like modern stuff like that, modern heel asshole bullshit that will get over with the crowd and will get heat. And the Paul brothers, they're heat magnets. Yeah. Theory, he's a heat magnet. You know, you throw in Dom Mysterio, forget about it. It's the NWO of fucking douchebags. So, you know, all in all, I thought it was a fantastic match. I love the way that they're leading into Rollins and Paul. And to your point, the stuff on Paul's show is going to be great because, you know, he's going to lend himself to it, you know, and I really look forward to the buildup of some of these matches that came out of that men's chamber match.
It's interesting. Again, maybe we're keeping kayfabe alive to some extent, but anything floating around I didn't have a chance to check wrestling Twitter today or anything on Instagram, but anything as it pertains to Montez Ford, any legitimate injury, or is that just, again, we're keeping kayfabe?
That was a work. You could tell it was a work. There was no X's thrown up or anything like that. Whenever there's injuries, they'll throw the X's up real quick.
It looked violent. I mean, when you look at a guy just splat right on that hard surface. I mean, again,
yeah, but he still, bro. He was at an angle. Like his body was kind of hanging from like the bottom rope like that at an angle.
Sure.
And remember, it's cushioned outside. He knew Rollins was coming. He went up and he bumped his hand down with it, man.
Sure.
That was safe. That was gimmick, man. That was gimmick.
Yeah.
And I think also that was there to buy time so that way neither one of those dudes could go into their finish. And I think it kind of gave them enough time so that Paul could come out, disrupt the match, and then it could set up Theory going over.
Yeah, definitely. Again, not a surprise, Austin Theory, the way they've been pushing this kid. He checks off a lot of boxes. I have really liked the evolution of the character. He's always been that sort of obnoxious, annoying heel. He's been insufferable. You know how I feel about insufferable individuals. I don't care for them, but it's a great character that he's portraying on there. And I would say that the best thing they ever did, though, Pat, again, maybe you'll disagree, but the best thing they ever did was get rid of that selfie gimmick and this and that. And I don't know. I think that this toughened up version of Austin Theory, I think, has been better. Clearly, he has been meal prepping. He looks a little more defined, chiseled. He's been hitting the gym clearly, and maybe cutting out those carbohydrates from his meals, and maybe drinking more water. I don't know. He looks a little more defined, that's for sure. But I like the evolution of his character, man.
Well, I mean, that's what it is, man. It's growth. I appreciate what he does pretty much all the time, man. I mean, the kid knows how to do what he knows how to do, and he does it well, man. He's a pro. The selfie thing before, it was meant to be annoying. It was meant to be that way, and he did a great job with that. And every character eventually grows, and he's grown into a different phase now, this character. It's more or less still kind of the same thing. He's cut out a few of the little things, but he's certainly a little more ruthless. I'm curious to see where he goes, especially for Mania. A lot of the big rumors are, him and John Cena, which I would love to see. I think it would be a really good rub for him. And I think it would be good to have Cena on that Mania card in Los Angeles as well.
Sure, especially since it seems with 6 weeks to go that The Rock will not be appearing at Mania. Again, something could change. I don't know. But it seems like you want to bring in some star power and overcompensate for the fact that Dwayne Johnson's, again, I don't want to say clearly, it appears that Dwayne Johnson's not going to be a part of WrestleMania. And I know that was a big sort of put your chips into the middle of the table, and it didn't work out. It seems like, you dealt the cards, you look at your hand, that's not the, what you wanted, what you got. So, compensate by getting Cena on there. Again, it's going to get a lot, another Cena WrestleMania shirt. Or poor parents out there that got to be shelling out $35 a pop for a new Cena shirt every pay-per-view PLE that he's appearing at. But a good chamber match for sure. Certainly, obviously, it brings us to the main event. And I said this to D. Well, first off, let me just say this. Samantha Irvin is a national treasure. I could watch her recite the alphabet when she introduces people, okay? She has the best announcing voice, hell of a lot better than the girl from NXT. I mean, God help us, I have to endure that every Tuesday. But she is just, you see the feeling, the pronunciation, the emphasis, just the mannerisms, the way she announces people, especially Roman Reigns, the undisputed, like, it's gold. But having said that, and I said this to D, off the air before broadcasting today, I have to tell you, man, the storytelling, the way this match has been building, again, just the presentation. I'm going to go on record right now. And again, as I said to D and you, I mean, obviously I'm the older guy in the group here. I've been watching wrestling longer, theoretically, than both of you. I would say this is a top 10 match all time. I'm willing to go as far as saying I'm putting this in the same category in my adult life. Well, since the time I've been watching wrestling as a kid, adolescent, and adulthood, I'm putting it up there with Macho and Steamboat. I'm putting it up there with Taker and Shawn. I'm putting it up there with a top 10 all-time match. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat. My cousin was pacing. I know people that were like, I didn't know what to think. I already had it in my mind. I wasn't falling for, oh man, maybe they'll swerve us. Maybe Sammy will win in his hometown. I just knew that somehow Roman was going to get the pin. And theoretically, Roman did get the pin cleanly. I mean, there was a lot of chicanery and a lot of bullshit before. It's a clean win for Roman. I get it. I mean, all of a sudden, are we saying that because someone got distracted for a second and they turn around and they get pinned, that's not a clean win? I mean, I'm sorry. Great match. Top 10 for me. I thought it was a clean finish. Where they go with Sammy from here, I don't know. Unless not he, but the fans start hijacking the show the way they did with Daniel Bryan in 2013, 2014, where at the time Vince had no choice but to put him into the main event at WrestleMania because he was that over. I don't know if that's the case now, but I would argue that it's getting there.
Well, I mean, that was my concern when we talked about it on, our last episode, that if Sammy doesn't lose cleanly in this match, now you put yourself in a position where people are going to be like, he lost, but he didn't lose cleanly. He deserves a rematch. And now they're going to want to cheer for a triple threat match. But where does this leave Steen? That's my thing. Owens is going to be in a situation where, it's going to be a tough one for him. And I think the goal has been, still is, and they, I'll kind of get to why I think they left the door open for that, Steen and Generico against the Usos, pardon me using their old gimmick names, but, sometimes that's just how I remember them. So, I think that the way the match was constructed was excellent. You saw Roman and Sammy's awareness like on full display. Like they read that room. And I mean, like 5 minutes passed before they even locked up.
Yeah.
And it was bananas. And the crowd was hot. Usually they'll milk it. They'll play it out. The crowd will stay hot, but then eventually the crowd will come down. They'll start to boo or something. No, the crowd was hot. They stayed hot. You know what I mean? And then when they locked up, they were still hot. They popped again. You know what I mean? And then they ran the tackle, the tackle spot, and all that stuff. And the crowd popped again. I mean, like they were just so emotionally invested in every movement in this match. And these guys, they created something magical, man. They created something special, I thought the ref bump spots were going to happen. That was going to be inevitable. Jimmy Uso getting involved was inevitable. The near falls were great. I thought all of them were done very, very well. I like the fact that they played to the fact that Sammy physically did not match up well with Roman. The Roman's clearly the stronger guy, and Sammy would kind of have to use leverage and timing and kind of fool Roman, to be able to get some type of an advantage over him.
I mean, had him beat though. I mean, again, you create the illusion that Sammy had him pinned for a few seconds. So again, I think you're right. There's that element in the air still, the uncertainty that, hey, Sammy had him beat, and it doesn't necessarily disqualify him from having a grievance and say, hey, listen, I had him beat. Personally, I know you're gonna hate when I say this, but fuck it, dude. Make it a fatal four-way. Get Steen in there. Fuck it. But no, I'm fucking with you. I'm kidding.
I mean, again, where does that leave the Usos? I'm trying to look at it from like, what does this do to the overall card? Sure. That's the thing. I mean, if this is a situation where you can call an audible and there isn't a plan in play for somebody who's necessarily a big star, then, you can kind of do something like that and that'll be okay. But like Steen's a star. He's a big star in that company. That's a dude that you want to have in a match that's meaningful for WrestleMania. You know what I mean? Tag title match with Steen and Generico against the Usos. That's big. That's big. You know what I mean? I thought everything was good. I like the fact that Jay didn't hit Sammy, didn't betray Roman. They kind of left it open. And if Sammy, hit the spear on him by accident, So now that's going to kind of cast a little doubt in that relationship. And then the fact that, like, they didn't really give the fans what they wanted. Like we had said, if you're not going to have Sammy win, what's the best thing you could do? Reunite Cena and Generico in Montreal. Have them do the big hug. They didn't do the big hug. That's okay. Yeah. They're probably going to save that for TV. But I think that they put themselves in a position to kind of get Roman to Cody, to get Sammy and Steen to the Usos, and, kind of basically set up the rest of the WrestleMania card to be what it should be. I mean, look, people are going to try and hijack the shows. Now, that's my fear. That's my fear with him not losing cleanly. That's my fear, And I know a lot of people were crying, oh, my God, this is messed up. You had the chance to put this guy over in Montreal. The WWE never wants to do this. Too fucking bad. Too fucking bad, okay? You're still going to watch it anyway. Stop complaining, all right? If it bothers you that much and you think it's so bad, then don't watch it. Don't watch it. You're still going to watch it anyway. They had a good opportunity to do something yesterday. They chose not to do it. But guess what? The fans were still entertained. The building was hot. Sammy got a pop at the end. More importantly, there's bigger plans in play. If you're going to have Sammy win the title, he's going to be a transitional champion. Why are you going to put over Sammy after Roman's had this amazing reign when you could save it for putting somebody else over at WrestleMania? You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry.
No, I'm with you. And I think, listen, we don't know what the text messages look like, what the phone calls have been like, what the Zoom calls have been like. We were under this impression for many, many months, right? We had heard really from one legitimate pro wrestling journalist, right? Billy Body, which we both love to listen to when they're on Keeping It 100. And I think there's an element of me, though, man, that while I'm happy to see Cody win the Rumble and challenge Roman for the title, obviously, the whole intrigue of, well, his dad never got to win the WWF / now WWE Championship. Cody can do it. There's a part of me, man, that's still a little disappointed that for whatever reason that we didn't get to see Dwayne Johnson put over his cousin at WrestleMania. I think there's an element of me that's a little disappointed. Not to say that Mania is going to be bad. Of course not. You would have to have the functional IQ of office furniture to even think that, because it's still going to be very good. I'm just saying, I think there's an element of me. There's like 5% of me that's a little disappointed that we don't get to see The Rock, again, from what it looks like, facing Roman, having Roman go over his cousin, having Roman sort of have that victorious moment. He stands over his vanquished foe / cousin, and that's how Mania goes off the air. It seems like that's not going to be the case with Cody getting that magic moment, winning the title his dad never could. My problem, though, is, and not to say that we're getting here, but last week when that segment with Sammy and Cody, you could tell the crowd. It was a great. I mean, it was like 30 minutes. Jesus Christ! But you could tell the crowd was solidly behind Sammy. And I'm with you. I'm kind of concerned that maybe going into Raw tomorrow night or SmackDown Friday night, that the crowd's going to hijack the show a little bit and kind of force Paul's hand into maybe having to put him into the main event. Now, again, I know over the weekend, I know you love the Mark conspiracy theories, right? We've been watching all weekend long that supposedly Vince had some input into the match last night. I mean, I talked to a lot of people today on text, my group chat and stuff like, of course that finish. If Vince has any input, of course, look at the finish we got, of course Vince is involved. I'm not buying that for a minute. But again, getting back to my point, there's an element of me that's a little disappointed that Dwayne, thus far, again, 6 weeks away, doesn't seem like he's going to be a part of Mania. I get it. Cody and Roman is still compelling. But there's a part of me, though, man, that's a little disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are going to feel disappointed. But again, we don't know what the situation is. It was our understanding, as per Billy Body, that he wanted assurances that there wasn't going to be any type of issues with Vince or anything popping up. And, I believe it was also a Saudi Arabia sale that might have been an issue or something. Look, it's not going to happen. I think there's also a lot of fans that want, WWE to stop bringing back old school wrestlers for one-off matches. I think they want, their guys to kind of continue to grow and to evolve. Look, I mean, WrestleMania with the right kind of promotion, with the right kind of stars will always do well. You know what I mean? The right kind of storyline will get people into the building. Rocky and Roman could still happen. It could happen next year for all we know. You know what I mean? Right now, I just don't think that for the involved parties, it seems like it's a good idea. Now, again, things could still change, but I think that Roman and Cody is a really interesting matchup. If I was booking it, I would do a rematch with Sami and Roman on SmackDown. You know, I would announce that shit tomorrow night, and I would do a rematch, and you'd get a huge number for that. And then you have Roman go over cleanly. No bullshit, no nonsense. Usos come out, you know, Jimmy comes out, beats the shit out of him. Jay pulls him away. Then Jay beats him up. Then Steen comes out. Steen and Generico wipe, clean house after the match. And that sets up the tag title match for WrestleMania. You know, that's a good way to do it. You eliminate all the problems. You have Roman walk away after he beats him. Roman goes straight to the back. One's up in the air. Usos come down, attack this dude. That's it. That's how you do it. People are going to complain no matter what, but guess what? They're still going to watch. No, I guarantee you that it doesn't matter what the situation is. They're still going to put on a great show. And to me personally, never mind the whole Dusty Rhodes thing. Never mind the whole, you know, Cody coming back to do all this stuff. Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns for the world title is a more compelling matchup to me. It just is. It is a more compelling matchup to me. And I think Cody Rhodes is more of a top guy and has more of that look than Sami Zayn does. And I love Sami Zayn. I think he's a fantastic wrestler. He's got the Mick Foley appeal, but to me, he's a transitional champion. That dude's not going to – you're not going to believe him against Drew in a match. You're not going to believe him against Brock or Bobby in a match. Cody, you believe it. You know what I'm saying? Cody, you could see it. You know, it's a little bit more. You could buy it a little more. And again, that's no knock to him. He's a fantastic worker. He does amazing for what he does. But there's certain guys that are meant to do certain things. You know what I'm saying? And that's that, you know? And I think that even he was intellectually honest enough to admit that when he was on Ariel Helwani. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, all in all, look, man, I think it was a fantastic match. I think it's one of the best matches I've ever seen. I agree with you. The story was beautiful. I watched it with my son. My daughter passed out, but I watched it with my son, and my son loved it. He was hooked. He told me by the time the match was done, he said, "Dad, that's one of the best wrestling matches I've ever seen." I mean, you know what I mean?
It was,
and it's true.
Yeah,
it really was.
It was from your 8-year-old son to say that to this 48-year-old man saying that. I mean, I think, and everybody in between. I mean, that's the thing. I think we saw great storytelling. We saw, again, sort of like the elements, right? Sammy's family there at ringside.
Yeah.
Pieces of like, oh, man. And again, I said this to D. I do not recall a hometown crowd that influential in a match since probably CM Punk in 2011 against Cena in Chicago. I don't recall any match that in the last decade or so that had that hometown feel where the hometown crowd played, I think, such a pivotal role in the tone, in the climate. Again, go back and, again, folks, go back on Peacock. I mean, if you can endure the ads and watch Money in the Bank 2011. I mean, I would say that this was as comparable of a hometown crowd having, again, I think a big part to play in the match. Not in the result, obviously, but certainly I think in the climate. Pat, also, too, I mean, something that obviously break down with you on the show here today, obviously, not just the success of Elimination Chamber and everything else, but for other pro wrestling fans, certainly last night, for people that stayed up late, all the way out in San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken, I think, or out in Northern California somewhere, Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks in the WWE, winning the IWGP Women's Championship, again, on a late, if for those of you who got to stay up for that, I mean, I was out last night, and I remember getting my phone going off at about 2-ish in the morning, I think. I was out with my friends, and I saw, breaking news, Mercedes Moné wins, and I'm like, holy shit, that's right. They're actually still having their event out in California. So a little history there. Good for Mercedes. She's trying to make the most of her time away from WWE, make some money, build that capital with fans, continue to work. Great match. I just saw the replay on YouTube today. Great match with Kairi Sane. What you expected, good job IWGP by New Japan getting a name like Mercedes Moné and putting the belt on her. Now, again, where it goes from here, I don't know. I
think that I think that, she's kind of doing her thing in Japan now. We had talked about it on previous episodes. There she is with Kairi Sane. They both look great. But I think that she's helping grow women's wrestling in Japan.
Yeah.
And I think that this is something she's always wanted to do. And I think ultimately she's going to end up, back in WWE. She's going to end up, she's kind of doing, the women's Cody Rhodes thing, like that's kind of what it seems like she's going to end up doing. I know that there was a lot of WWE people that were there yesterday supporting her. Bailey, I think, was there.
CM Punk was there.
CM Punk, yeah, but he was hanging out with Lars Fredrickson from Rancid. Your boy Dave Meltzer. Who else was there? Snooka's daughter, Sarona Snuka, she was there. Trinity was there. So I mean, they had a good turnout, and I think for that kind of crowd, for what they're trying to do, that was good. Jay White lost a loser leaves New Japan match against Eddie Kingston.
Of all people to lose out to. And I love the Switchblade, but really, you're jobbing out to Kingston?
Yeah, but I mean, Eddie's been doing stuff with New Japan Strong for a while.
Sure.
So it kind of makes sense. Homicide was there too. He's also been doing stuff with them. Filthy Tom Lawler, so it was a lot of New Japan Strong guys. I just think that's a good matchup. And if Eddie Kingston wants to do that, or if they're going to let him kind of do New Japan more often, I think that's a good win for him. Jay White, obviously, we don't know where he's going to end up. AEW, WWE, that's probably the best place. Honestly, I would put him in NXT, and I would make him the guy to beat Braun Breaker, because sooner or later Breaker is going to have to come up. And I just think that Jay White, not enough of the American audience really knows him like that, not enough of the wrestling audience knows him like that. And I think that he's a young dude. He's a well-spoken dude. He's got a good-looking white boy. He could fucking talk well. He's a dude that, you put him in NXT, he'll get himself over and eventually get to the point where, he can make the main roster, and he'll have a little bit more recognition than them just putting him on Raw or SmackDown and people going, who the fuck's this guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that would be the best choice for him. But,
right.
I mean,
You're right. I mean, in the last year, obviously he's done work with Impact Wrestling, bringing the Bullet Club gimmick to Impact Wrestling along with Chris Bay and some of the other members. Obviously, when Anderson and Gallows were there, sort of having the Bullet Club on television, I thought was great. Again, as a devoted Impact Wrestling fan that watches it every Thursday on Access TV, it was good to see that. But I think you're correct. I mean, listen, let's be fair. Let's go back to June of last year at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. I mean, obviously, if you don't know about New Japan and you don't follow Jay White, when you're watching that Fatal 4-Way where Jay White retained the belt, you're like, what? Who? And it's not a knock on Jay White, but again, in North America, he's not as well known as he is overseas. And I think that if he goes to AEW, it'll be another signing. And I'm hoping that maybe Jay has some awareness here, where I get he has some friends in AEW, and maybe AEW. I mean, it's hard to say this out loud without laughing. To think that AEW could outbid WWE for his services, I don't think so. But if he's smart about what he wants with his character work and what he wants with his persona and the optic of it, you're right. He has to go to WWE. He has to, I think, going to NXT, building up that repertoire, building up that brand of his. I love Jay White, and I know that you and I have agreed to disagree a lot on the show about him. I just like him. He's believable. He's in great shape. I think he's a good talker. I get that you don't like the cheap Pete stuff. Understandable as a former worker yourself. I mean, again, certain boxes have to be checked off you. I respect that. But I think Jay White's got he's got money all over him, I think. And I think if he's produced correctly and used correctly, which WWE will, because he's a talent, I think the sky's the limit for Jay White, though.
Yeah, I think so. I think with the right kind of guidance, he could certainly grow. To me personally, Ospreay is a better promo guy at this point in time. I think Ospreay is just a lot more passionate. You look at that promo that he cut on Kenny Omega leading up into Wrestle Kingdom. It was amazing. I think the promo was better than the match. I mean, some people might disagree with me.
Yeah,
it was a good match. I don't think it was the best match of the night. I think Okada Jay White was. Jay White's really good in the ring, and Jay White's improved, but he's just not there yet. And again, to your point, he needs that time to marinate, to grow with the American audience in order for people to really kind of give him a chance. And I think that if he's able to do that, and he's able to go to NXT and not go to AEW, and make some money there, and he might get a push for like 5 minutes, but I mean, it'll only be a matter of time before dude ends up just being like another good worker that's there, lost amongst the shuffle of them. So, I think I'd like to think that he's smart enough to go to WWE, even if they send them to NXT, have some awareness, get yourself over with the American audience, or maybe they put him on the main roster. Who knows? I don't know. But I just think that WWE is a better place for him to go and a better place for him to take that next step. And he might have to challenge himself. He might have to go outside of his comfort zone. He might have to stop being Switchblade. He might have to stop doing the shtick that he's been doing. But that's okay, because now it creates room for you to grow and do something different, possibly something even better. So, we'll be keeping a look at where Jay White ends up in the future. But all in all, big ups to New Japan yesterday for that event. And I know that they're going to be coming back to the States again, I think in DC in April. So that's good that we've been getting a lot of steady New Japan events here. And it's good for some of the guys to get a chance to showcase their ability, especially a lot of the American independent wrestlers.
One more news bit here on the show, though. It's interesting because I talked about it with D, our great producer, our great PR guy, D Rotten. Again, I won't give out his government name for W-2 or 1099 purposes, but certainly I talked about it before where, Dave Meltzer blocked me already on Twitter. I was waiting for Tony Khan to block me because I'll just read you what I wrote. And I think I might have sent you a screenshot of it from what I sent yesterday to a few different group chats. But we all know that Tony Khan clearly got triggered on Friday night with Ariel Helwani's appearance at SmackDown. Certainly, and I'm just trying to find it here and make sure that I think I have it correctly. Yeah, so Tony Khan obviously wrote on Friday night, you're a fraud at Ariel Helwani. You're as legitimate of a reporter as at Tony Schiavone 24 hashtag AEW Rampage. I wrote back, this got unnecessarily tribal, Tony. He's a businessman. If he's hired to make appearances, that's on him. Do you have him on retainer like you do with at Dave Meltzer, WON, ? If you don't, what do you care? Hire him then. Stop being childish. You're acting like you're at AEW fan base. So to this moment, Tony Khan hasn't blocked me. But the reason I felt writing that is because, Ariel Helwani's appearance on SmackDown Friday night in Montreal, I think triggered a lot of people in the IWC, on social media. And I'm thinking to myself, why? Like, as somebody, and again, and I said this to D off the air before we broadcast today, again, as someone who has learned to monetize podcasting, obviously not at the levels that Ariel Helwani does, but even at the low level, again, I understand the importance of monetizing a project like that. So if someone's going to hire me for something or pay like a stipend for something, of me making an appearance somewhere, doing something for some company, I'm a businessman. I'm going to do that. I'm not struggling financially, and I don't do the podcast that I do in Hudson County politics for that reason. I don't live off that income. I just monetize it where it's nice, where I can use it for bills, or I can use it to go out or save or whatever. The point is that Ariel Helwani is a businessman. Mm-hmm. And I found it really, I think, rich of Marks Online to give him a hard time when there was a sort of like false equivalence by a lot of Marks Online. Well, what would it look like if Dave Meltzer showed up on Dynamite and did a segment with the fans in the crowd? And, would fans be outraged about that? Well, okay, but the point is that Tony Khan clearly has an association with Dave Meltzer. Again, I'm not privy to his W-2s. I'm not privy to his 1099 forms, what he writes on his taxes as in terms of income. Does he receive compensation from Tony Khan? I don't know. But it's become clear that Tony Khan and Dave Meltzer are almost joined at the hip. Ariel Helwani may not be. And guess what? If Paul Levesque and Nicholas Khan said, hey, Ariel, it's in Montreal. It's a short trip for you from New York. I'll make an appearance and we'll give you, I don't know, I'm brainstorming here, $10K. and we'll put you up in a hotel for the night at the Marriott, whatever. We'll give you a car service from the hotel to the Bell Center. Okay, who wouldn't take that? I mean, it boggles my mind about seeing Marks on, triggered by, I can't believe Ariel Helwani did. And then for Tony Khan, holy shit, bro, you're a grown-ass man. You got so triggered by that you had to go on Twitter to shit on him and then to shit on an employee like Tony Schiavone. Again, whether it's kayfabe, I don't know what the fuck. It's a work, whatever. But I think Tony Khan got worked here into a frenzy, whether the Adderall didn't hit right, edibles, cocaine, whatever. Tony Khan looks really foolish tonight going into this week's Dynamite. And I don't know, man. I just think it's embarrassing. And I wrote that again. I'm waiting to see if Tony Khan replies to me. He won't, obviously. But I know Dave Meltzer did, and then he proceeded to block me. I just think it's a really bad look. And I can't believe people are rushing to Tony Khan's defense here. It's embarrassing.
Well, I mean, hey man, he's got his cult, he got his people that back him up no matter what, that will always be there for him, and I just think that this isn't the first time that he's behaved this kind of way, in a way that maybe a CEO shouldn't. If Dave Meltzer went on Dynamite, first of all, I don't think anybody would really fucking know who he is outside of that small Mark community. Ariel Helwani is pretty well known, whether through BT Sport or his time as an MMA journalist. Ariel Helwani is a popular guy. So, yeah, people are going to know who he is if he's on your TV. If you watch combat sports or you listen to sports podcasts. Dave Meltzer, not so much. But, I mean, it is what it is, dude. I just don't understand why a guy who's a billionaire, who owns a Premier League team, who owns an NFL team, and who owns a pro wrestling company acts this way. Like, why do you interact with marks on the internet? Why do you interact with stuff like this that happens? Why are you being salty because Ariel tried to interview you and you don't want to give him anything about the Punk situation and it was a bad interview? I don't know, man. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, Helwani's a Montreal boy. He's a wrestling fan. I'm pretty sure that they could have invited him to do something. He might have done it. Maybe, if it was right, if it was appropriate. You also got to understand, too, Ariel Helwani probably don't want to attach his name to something that might be less than professional or kind of be amateur quality. That guy's worked hard to get to where he's got to. So, I just think that as far as it goes, with what he did, for Elimination Chamber, I just think that, it was very well done. It's a small vignette. He appeared on TV. He was on the pre-show. What's the big fucking deal, dude? What's the big deal? Why don't you try and find people to do that with your product? Oh, wait, your product would have to be more mainstream for you to do that, and you'd have to stop catering to your Mark fans. That's where the problem is. You know what I mean? It's so strange to me. It's like he's complaining about this guy doing something, right? Crossover, kind of mainstream appeal, mainstream stuff. He's complaining about that, but yet he wants his company to be a niche product. What do you want? You want your company to be a crossover mainstream thing, or do you want it to be a niche product? You can't have both. You can't have both, and you certainly can't be mad at somebody who's doing something else, who's probably getting paid, or who's just doing it because he fucking wants to, because he's a fan and it's in his city. I don't know, but I just think it's a bad look for Tony Khan, man.
Yeah, and at the same time, too, it's something that we would never in our adult lives ever think that during his time as CEO, as head of creative, that Vince McMahon would have even wasted a second of his time to even engage the fan base like this. And you can tell that Paul Levesque isn't going to do that either. And it's just, it really does remind us that there's a much more professional presentation and just a much more professional climate around WWE. It goes obviously with Nick Khan, the most powerful Khan, I would argue, in pro wrestling. And it's just, it boggles my mind that fans took to Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and whatever all weekend, rushing to the aid of Tony Khan, thinking that this is a behavior that you expect, that you would think you would never see from a CEO. And that's just, it's a bad look. Obviously, there's that's going to tell him anything. His chief legal officer is not going to say anything. His father is not going to give two shits. He's just giving him money. He's pretty much giving him his inheritance now to use however he sees fit. And I think that without there being a checks and balances somehow, listen, we've all read the documentaries, we've all read books or whatever. We know that for decades, when it was Vince's company, Vince was going to do what he wanted to do, but he always surrounded himself with smart wrestling people back in the day, right? From Pat Patterson, God rest his soul, to, of course, Jim Cornette and others during that time where they were smart wrestling people. And again, Vince was going to do whatever he wanted to do. But I think there was always that moment of like, hey, let me confer with these guys. Let me get another opinion. And I think that, again, Vince did whatever. Ultimately, it was Vince's call. That's the problem with Tony Khan. There's nobody around him to be a good support system that say, hey, Tony, by the way, man, this is not a good look for you. Like no one's going to step up and do that. Whether or not there's anyone, whoever his inner circle is, I don't know. I honestly don't know if he has an inner circle per se within the creative and production spectrum, in AEW. We know that other people, for example, Eric Bischoff tried, I think, talking to Tony Khan. I'm sure Conan in his capacity running AAA has talked to Tony Khan. But it's just a bad look if he's not going to listen to people, because there's no way that anybody, whether it's an attorney, whether it's a human resources officer, somebody would pull Tony aside and say, what are you doing? This is embarrassing. Look how bad you look going after Ariel Helwani. Ariel Helwani doesn't need you. Sadly, he needs Ariel Helwani. To your point, he needs mainstream people, okay? He needs coverage on ESPN. Well, maybe that's not realistic because ESPN and WWE have a contract, so that's probably a bad example. Same thing with Fox Sports. He needs to catch on with somebody mainstream where his product can reach more eyes. Again, the ratings have been what they've been. The last million plus rating, not even million plus, it was like 1,030,000, whatever. It's just slightly over 1 million, was the Jay Briscoe tribute match, or the show at least. That's the thing, though. It's like, if you're trying to be a heel via Twitter and social media, that's one thing. I don't think this is a work. I think he's legitimately taking to Twitter to complain about something he doesn't like and throwing one of his own employees under the bus, and then going after Ariel Helwani. Ariel Helwani could not do wrestling for 6 months and still make a profit and still get tracked because of what he does with MMA and other things. It's a bad look for Tony.
Yeah, it's a bad look. It just looks immature, man. It's not something that he should be wasting his time with. Vince would never give a shit about what the marks would say or anything like that. If he did, forget about it. He never would have stopped grabbing his phone, man. He would have been on his phone 24/7. I mean, I'm sure that there's people in the company that have been like, hey, Tony, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe there are people that are telling him this. Maybe there are people that are not getting paid. They genuinely like the guy, because one thing that people do say about him is that he is a nice guy, but maybe he just doesn't want to listen. Maybe he just doesn't care, like what people say. Maybe he feels that he needs to do this somehow. I don't know why, but maybe he feels that way. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to tell somebody with that much money and that much power what they can or can't do when you kind of haven't even set like those specific boundaries. You know what I mean? It's like, him as a boss, CM Punk with what he did, and that post-show scrum, never would have done that with Vince McMahon. Never. It never would have gotten to that point. Vince would have stopped that shit and it would have been done right there on the spot. Tony Khan let him do that. You know what I'm saying? Tony Khan lets these people do a lot of stuff. He hasn't established those boundaries, and it's too late for him to try and do that now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the time for oversight is over. I mean, the time for oversight. And even at this point, I think he would literally need to become a micromanager. And as someone who loathes micromanaging, I think that it's that bad of a climate and work environment where I think you might have to go back to that. And obviously, working with adults is not going to be easy. You've established this climate in AEW for 3 years now. Going on 4, where you're kind of giving the employees the ability to run the asylum. And I'm sorry, that's a bad look. And, just to sort of close up with this topic, but I just think it's interesting where these are things that Tony continues to shoot himself in the foot with. It continues to make him look bad on social media. And for people to take to his defense, I get it that, oh, well, Ariel Helwani looks like a hypocrite. No, he doesn't. He's a capitalist. He's a businessman. And again, WWE's not going to have someone just show up on their television without compensating them somehow. Maybe, hey, listen, take a flight and we'll get your room and car service. Maybe it's something as simple as that, where it wasn't even a compensation for the night, right? Okay, but they know how to do that. They're smart at business. And Tony has a lot. For a guy that graduated with a degree in business from, I believe, University of Illinois, I think UI, I could be wrong, but I think that's where he got it from. Like, you're not showing yourself to be a businessman. You're showing yourself to be a mark that's catering to marks, but you're just wealthy. And I just think it's a bad look for him. And I think that moving forward, Ariel Helwani's going to be fine. Now, again, I hope he doesn't get emboldened by this and start thinking, hey, you know what? Maybe I should get Dave Meltzer and put him on television. Dave Meltzer is probably one of the most least photogenic human beings. So I would hope that's not the case. But Tony, I think, has to sort of revamp his image a lot. It looks bad. It looks childish. And again, I'm not saying I'm the most perfect person aesthetically on television when I present myself, but Jesus Christ, like, you have to have some awareness. And I don't think Tony has that. And unfortunately, he gets emboldened by his mark audience where they think, oh, cool, go after somebody else. It's not a good look.
Yeah, I agree. There's one person that I know that hates micromanagement worse than you do, and that's my buddy Marky. And he wouldn't be able to stand something like that in that type of work environment. So obviously, I who would if Marky can? I mean, he wouldn't be able to.
You realize you're not on Facebook anymore. He's on my Facebook. The minute he sees this episode,
what is he gonna say?
Just be careful.
Why are you turning this into something? See, there you go again, antagonizing like always. That's what Uribe likes to do, people. He likes to antagonize situations. He likes to in the flames.
He might come up from behind on you on Park Avenue and just, I don't know, man. You gotta be careful.
And what? Say hi, slap me some skin, high five. Maybe we'll break dance a little bit on the sidewalk. I don't know. But you're calling for some type of violence. What else is new, Uribe? What else? We're not on bikes, all right? We're not on bikes. But
he might hit you with this bike. He might hit you with this bike.
I've been hit with a unicycle before. It actually left a scar right on my shin, so it's not something you want to be getting hit by. But yeah, I mean, kind of to just close it out, like with the Tony Khan thing, I just think that, like, he's kind of past the point of no return already, man. Like, this is it. Like, he's had so many different wake-up calls, whether it's the stuff that happened with Punk, whether it's how he booked and debuted guys that are stars. He's just continued to fuck up, and he will continue to just do whatever the hell he wants. He has no intention on growing his audience. He's happy servicing that marked fan base. So, keep doing what you're doing, but when your business doesn't grow, don't complain, And look, there'll be fans that'll still stick up for him. There's fans that stick up for wrestlers forever. You're a Bret Hart fan, bro. You're still sticking up for him from Montreal. You know what I'm saying? There's fans that are always going to be there for people, that are always going to be for their favorite promoter, their favorite wrestler, favorite manager, whoever. Tony Khan has no shortage of fans and support, excuse me. But ultimately, it doesn't translate into enough within that mark community to grow and to create a big number to keep a program on TV. I don't know, man. I just think he's Herb Abrams, bro. He's Herb Abrams. That's what it is. A modern day Herb Abrams, Herb Abrams with a fucking network TV deal. Well, did he have a network TV deal back in the day, Herb?
I don't remember. I'd have to look that up, man. I don't know.
He must have. But I mean, he's got a primetime slot, Tony Khan, and look at this shit. Look at this shit. Look at what he's done. That's why Cornette's so pissed off. That's why all these dudes are so mad at him. Because, like, here's somebody who had money, who had an opportunity to really stick it to Vince. I mean, really give Vince, like, some type of competition. And he just shit the bed
and it has
every single turn.
And it's the least amount of competition you would imagine where, listen, I can sort of, maybe thump my chest on this one. Impact back 10 years ago got better ratings for maybe a 2 or 3 year period than AEW. And again, they were never challenging WWE, but they were getting 2 million viewers. I don't think we're going to see AEW ever get 2 million viewers anytime soon. Not the way that they book and not their presentation. So at least as an Impact fan, at least I can always brag about that W when it comes to AEW marks. But folks, before we call it a night here, obviously you're tuning in here to a special Elimination Chamber review show here on a first YouTube episode of Working the Marks with the PBR superstar, Patrick Rivera, and of course, your Shirley Professor, Fernando Uribe. Folks, always remember to shoot us an email, workingthemarks@gmail.com. And of course, you see all of our great social media handles there on the banner. Shoot us a message. You can see there at working_the_marks. Hit me up on Instagram at the Fernando Zone. You can see there at Patty Rican. Hit up Pat. Tell him hi. Tell him, compliment him on his exceptional selection of Hawaiian shirts.
This is actually a sweater. This is actually, look at this. It's a cardigan.
My bad.
Right? Cardigan sweater.
Shoot him a message how great that NYC FC scarf looks, because again, they are that MLS team in the New York area, right? That's always that's winning titles. That's competitive and relevant, right? Absolutely, no question.
Not jabronis.
That's right. I'm an NYC FC fan as well. So shout out to him whenever you can, of course, and our New York Yankees. Certainly, don't get me started on them. But folks, always, we want to thank you for tuning in here. Again, our first episode, a couple kinks we're working through. Obviously, YouTube and StreamYard are great platforms. And I enjoy using them. But Pat, before we call it a show here tonight, anything coming up for you? Anything you really want to plug for our loyal audience?
No, I don't want to plug shit. Just keep watching these videos. Keep tuning in. Happy to be with you here the first time. I'm starting to learn more about technology finally, even though Uribe's a fucking Apple snob. But I just appreciate being able to talk with you guys, talk all things wrestling here. And I look forward to doing more of these in the future. Big shout out to D Rotten. Big shout out to Famcast Media. Shout out to Marky. Shout out to The Roy. Shout out to everybody out there. It's been a pleasure joining you here. Profe, sign us off.
Folks, again, special thank you to Famcast Media for being such loyal supporters and obviously, sponsoring the show here. Showing it to D Rotten and the amazing job that he does in producing not just this show again, and certainly working on promoting our podcast on social media. I have to tell you, the Working the Marks Instagram page is growing. The content there is, I don't know, it's exploding like any guy seeing pictures of Maris probably in their pants at some point in time. So, you know what I'm saying? But it's great content. We have D Rotten to thank for that. And we are, I know I speak on behalf of Pat. We are just incredibly grateful to D Rotten for all the hard work and dedication he does. And obviously producing this show here on YouTube via StreamYard. Folks, as a special programming note, Monday night tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time, the president of the New Jersey Cannabis Association will be on. Edmund DeVoe, a fan of Real Talk with Fernando Uribe via Jersey First TV, will be talking everything about cannabis in New Jersey, why dispensary licenses have been lagging coming out of Trenton, and quite frankly, is New Jersey really serious about making sure that people of color, black and brown, who have been disenfranchised for decades because of antiquated drug laws concerning marijuana, whether or not they're not getting access, or at least being, jumping to the top of the line when it comes to getting access to dispensary licenses. So we're going to talk about that with him, and also the future of cannabis in New Jersey, where there are tons of municipalities, folks, that have, years ago started bracing themselves for this and started banning dispensaries in their neighborhoods. We know that townships all across New Jersey, in all 21 counties, have set ordinances at a municipal level to stop cannabis sales. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what the New Jersey Cannabis Association can do to maybe help change their minds and know that this is a great revenue stream, and certainly one that I think goes a long way, again, along medicinal lines, and really trying to help us maybe kick the stigma that still exists with cannabis unfairly and wrongfully, which is still omnipresent, I think, really in our social and political climate. So tune in tomorrow, folks, again, 6 p.m. Eastern time to Real Talk via Jersey First TV. I'll also have some special commentary about Thomas Moran, the editor-in-chief of the editorial page at the Star-Ledger. Some comments about me on his recent editorial, which, I don't know, it seems like maybe he wants to get cooked, and I think he'll get cooked nicely tomorrow.
Oh,
I think you definitely want to tune in for that. But Always write to the show, ladies and gentlemen, workingthemarks@gmail.com. We love getting emails. Follow us on all of our social media platforms and make sure that you start also. Yes, let's go Devils. Big win yesterday against the Penguins in Pittsburgh at the Igloo as they stand third in the Eastern Conference right now, just a few points behind Carolina and a few points behind the Eastern Conference leading Boston. I hate Boston. Fuck that city. But certainly just a few points behind the Boston Bruins as well. Absolutely, yes. And folks, make sure you always check us out on Facebook. Like us, share it, and do your part, because sharing is caring when it comes to Working the Marks here, not just on blogtalkradio.com/workingthemarks, but also here on YouTube via Famcast Media. He is the PBR superstar, the illustrious, the glorious, the notorious Patrick Rivera. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, Fernando Uribe, the professor himself, folks, saying so much. Thank you for watching. Obviously, enjoy the rest of your President's Day weekend. Certainly, please party responsibly, and we'll see you next time here on Famcast Media.
Famcast Media, bitch. Famcast Media.